My name is Raquel Barradas de Freitas. I'm a research lecturer in law here at Balliol. I teach jurisprudence and public law here at Balliol. I give tutorials to undergraduates in constitutional, administrative law and jurisprudence. My research is in the philosophy of law or in general jurisprudence. I study interpretation and its role in judicial reasoning, and more recently I've also been studying relationships between authority and trust. Well, there's a variety of qualities, but I think more generally speaking, critical thinking, the ability to think carefully about a problem, not to give up too soon if things get difficult, the ability to build an argument and to defend a view, a well-informed view about a problem, to take intellectual risks, to be imaginative, but also to be analytical and to be able to focus on detail and to draw fine distinctions. Typically, I give my students a reading list, a full reading list for the course, about a week or sometimes 2 weeks before term begins, so that they have enough time to prepare, to structure their time, to look for materials. I divide the reading list into core readings and supplementary readings, academic texts, articles, chapters of books, and I also give them a list of guiding questions which are there to help them focus their attention when reading the materials. And then, of course, I give them 2 essay questions to choose from. Typically, they're asked to write an essay per week on a topic, so they can choose one question and focus their attention on that question, which we will then, of course, discuss in our tutorial. Each tutor has his or her own way of structuring tutorials. What I typically do is ask one of my students, and I normally teach my students in pairs. I ask one of my students to start the discussion by giving us the gist of their argument in the essay that they submitted, which of course they submitted not only to me, but also to their tutorial partner in advance. And then the tutorial partner is invited to comment on the argument that the other student defended in their essay, and our discussion flows from there. I also, and this is particularly important, I also give them very detailed written feedback on their essays. And so in addition to our tutorial discussion, which is often limited because we're not able to discuss everything in the essay in 1 hour or an hour and a half, in addition to the points that we discuss in tutorial, they also get written notes on their essays every week, which they're then welcome to come back to me about if they have any questions or doubts. But that's typically how it goes. The discussion is opened by the student's own argument, own view on a particular question, and then the other student jumps in and a debate often follows, sometimes really energetically and enthusiastically. I particularly like to work with examples, and very often we talk about specific examples to illustrate more abstract theoretical points. Students, of course, have to read lots of cases in their legal subjects, and it's a natural thing to use real legal examples from court judgments, for example, to discuss particular points. But we often also use, especially in jurisprudence, we use everyday examples and even imagined scenarios to test the students' arguments and their ideas and their intuitions, and that often makes the discussion more dynamic and interesting. The tutorial system provides the opportunity to tutors to give their students regular feedback on their work. And that's particularly important because in law, students will sit most of their exams at the very end of their degree, with the exception of 3 subjects, criminal law, Roman law, and constitutional law, on which they're examined at the end of their first year. And so it's particularly important that they get regular notes and comments on the written work that they submit from their tutors. Different tutors will do this in different ways. What I like to do is to give them, alongside the feedback that I give them in tutorials and the focus that we are able to give to their work in tutorials. In addition to that, I will also like to give them written notes on their essays every week on each topic, which they can then use as a revision tool when they revisit the readings in the vacation. Students also sit college exams, which we call collections, at the start of the new term after they completed a particular course. This is meant to give them the opportunity to collect their thoughts on a particular subject and see whether revision has gone well during the vacation and whether they have a solid understanding of the materials. So they sit these in college at the start of the new term, and the tutors then mark those papers and give them feedback on those papers, and of course also a quantitative mark in many cases, so that they know more or less the standard at which they're working. The most enjoyable part of teaching and just generally interacting with the students is the fresh energy and the curiosity that they bring to discussions. They often come up with really interesting angles of analysis that someone who is immersed in a topic for a longer period wouldn't necessarily think of, and that's the most enjoyable part of it. It's also extremely rewarding to see how they mature intellectually and increase in confidence as our course goes on. It's an especially rewarding part of the process to see them thrive and develop a voice of their own in the process of writing and speaking about what they're studying. In many different ways. I think at their best, tutorials are student-led, encourages students to relate as equals to those authors that they're reading when they're preparing a topic, and to break down problems into simpler elements, and that often brings in new angles to the discussion that in my own research I wouldn't come across or necessarily come across on my own. And so very often I find new research questions through my discussions with students and end up going in more interesting directions in my own work thanks to my work with them. The best thing about teaching at Balliol, of course, has to be the bright, hard-working, passionate students that we have. They truly make the teaching experience very, very special here. And they're independent learners, and of course we encourage them to become even more independent. As their tutor, my role is to give them tools to sharpen their own thought around issues, and that is an extremely rewarding kind of work to do, and it's interacting with them and seeing them thrive as they progress through their studies. That's the most wonderful thing about teaching here. I'm also very lucky to have very kind, generous colleagues who are very supportive and from whom I learn a lot.